you the executor of a will? If so, then you need to watch this video, where I'm going to show you 13 common mistakes that executors can make during the probate process and how to avoid them so you don't end up in hot water with either the court system or your family members. Hey, this is Andy Moss. I'm an experienced realtor and certified probate expert, and I've seen plenty of cases where executors make really silly mistakes when it comes to probate proceedings. It's important to know what those errors are so that you can steer clear of them and have a successful outcome. In this video and the one following, I'm going to cover these 13 common mistakes and give you some guidance on how to avoid them. As a disclaimer, before I get started going through these, you should know that I'm not an attorney and you should always seek the advice of a licensed and qualified probate or estate law attorney when going through the probate process. If you need help finding one of these, please leave a comment below or feel free to reach out to us directly. All right, so let's dive into those mistakes and tips to avoid them. Stick around to the end as I'll show you a solution that we use to essentially eliminate all of these mistakes from ever having a chance to arise. Number one on our list is delay in taking action. Executors who procrastinate and fail to promptly address tasks and responsibilities can cause significant delays in the probate process. The role of an executor involves numerous tasks and responsibilities, and many of those are time sensitive. These can include notifying beneficiaries, inventorying assets, paying debts and taxes, and distributing assets to the heirs. Any delay in taking action on these tasks can lead to significant delays in the probate process, creating frustration for beneficiaries and potentially leading to legal complications. Any extension in the time frame can cause stress and anxiety for beneficiaries who may be relying on their inheritance for financial support. It can also cause an increase in costs associated with probate, as some jurisdictions do charge higher fees based upon the length of probate. Additionally, a delay in taking action can lead to missed deadlines. Many tasks that executors must perform, such as filing tax returns and notifying creditors, have strict deadlines set by law. Missing these deadlines can result in penalties, interest charges, and potentially legal liability for the executor. Moreover, if any executor delays in securing and managing the estate's assets, these assets could lose value or be damaged or stolen. For example, if a house is left vacant and unattended, it could deteriorate or be vandalized, reducing the value of that asset. Not to mention, if a vacant house isn't properly insured and something happens to it, most insurance companies won't cover that damage. You actually need to have a special insurance for a vacant house called vacancy insurance. Finally, delay can lead to disputes among beneficiaries. This is probably the worst case scenario. If beneficiaries perceive that an executor is not fulfilling their duties in a timely manner, they may become impatient or even suspicious, leading to disagreements, legal disputes, or even removal of you as the executor. In almost all cases, executors are paid by the estate. Executors should approach their duties with a sense of urgency and diligence to ensure a smooth and efficient probate process, just as if it was a second job. Seeking professional help out of the gate will certainly help to keep you on track. Number two is paying out funds too early. Distributing cash or assets to beneficiaries before considering all necessary expenses, such as debts, taxes, and fees, can lead to complications and financial issues later on. In the process of estate administration, executors are tasked with the responsibility of distributing assets to beneficiaries. However, this task should only be done after all necessary expenses, including debts, taxes, and fees, have been accounted for, paid, and settled. One of the most significant risks associated with premature distribution is the potential depletion of estate funds needed to cover outstanding liabilities. Debts, taxes, and admin fees, such as appraisal fees, court costs, must be paid from the estate's funds before any kind of distributions can be made. If an executor distributes assets before these expenses are paid, the estate may not have sufficient funds left over for these obligations. Premature distribution can also lead to complex tax issues. The executor is responsible for filing the decedent's final income tax return and the estate's tax return, which involves assessing and paying any owed taxes. If funds are distributed before these tax obligations are fulfilled, the executor may face penalties from tax authorities or even personal liability. Additionally, paying out funds too early can also cause conflicts among the beneficiaries, especially if premature distribution leads to an inequitable distribution of assets. For instance, let's say if one beneficiary receives their share before a large debt is discovered, the other beneficiaries may end up receiving less than their fair share. This can lead to disputes, potentially resulting in legal action against the executor. So while it's understandable that executors may want to expedite the distribution process to provide beneficiaries with their inheritance quickly, as you can see, paying out funds too early can lead to significant complications and financial issues. Executors should work with the estate's attorney to ensure that they have a comprehensive understanding of the estate's liabilities and expenses before proceeding with any kind of distribution. By doing so, they can avoid any kind of potential legal conflicts, they'll fulfill their fiduciary duties and responsibilities, and they'll ensure a smooth and efficient completion of the entire probate process. Number three is neglecting to file necessary tax returns. executors must ensure that all required tax returns, including income tax and estate tax returns, are filed accurately and within the designated time frame. Fulfilling tax obligations is a crucial component of estate administration, and executors bear the responsibility of ensuring that this task is completed accurately and promptly. This includes filing all necessary tax returns, such as the decedent's final income tax return and the estate tax return. Neglecting to file these required tax returns can lead to serious complications, including certain financial penalties and potential legal issues for either the estate or for the executor personally. The process of filing tax returns for an estate is multifaceted. Executors must gather all relevant financial information, calculate any taxes owed, and submit the appropriate forms to the tax authorities within the designated time frame. This task requires a keen understanding of tax laws as well as meticulous attention to detail to avoid any errors that could trigger audits or penalties. Tax authorities may impose penalties and interest on unpaid taxes, which can deplete the estate's assets and potentially affect the amount of available distribution for beneficiaries. In some cases, executors may even be held personally liable for unpaid taxes if they distribute assets to beneficiaries before settling tax debts. Hence what we just talked about in number 2. Neglecting tax responsibilities can also delay the probate process. Until all tax matters are resolved, the estate can't be fully settled and assets can't be distributed to beneficiaries. This will most certainly prolong the period of uncertainty and stress for beneficiaries and may even lead to legal disputes or some sort of challenge. It's crucial for executors to understand their tax obligations and ensure accuracy in all filings and adhere to all designated timeframes. By doing so, they can fulfill their fiduciary duties, avoid unnecessary penalties, and help ensure a smooth probate process. Work with a CPA right from the beginning so that you know what the estate and your responsibilities are and what liabilities you could potentially face. Number 4 on this list, and this one gets a double star, is failure to communicate with beneficiaries. Lack of effective communication with beneficiaries will lead to misunderstandings, disputes, and strained relationships throughout the entire probate process and after. Effective communication is a cornerstone of successful estate administration, and as the executor, one of the key responsibilities is to maintain open lines of communication with all beneficiaries throughout the entire process. This includes providing updates about the probate process, explaining decisions, and answering any questions that beneficiaries may have. Lack of communication can leave beneficiaries feeling left out of the loop or possibly even suspicious of the executor's actions. A lack of transparency can breed mistrust, which can also escalate into disagreements and legal disputes. For example, if beneficiaries are not informed about the value of the estate, the debts that need to be paid, or the timeline for distribution of the assets, they may feel that an executor is not fulfilling their duties properly or fairly. Effective communication can help manage beneficiaries' expectations. The probate process is definitely lengthy and complex, and beneficiaries may become frustrated or anxious if they don't understand why it's taking so long. By regularly updating beneficiaries on the progress of the probate process and explaining any sort of delays, executors can help alleviate concerns and prevent frustration from turning it into any kind of potential conflict. Additionally, clear and timely communication can also prevent misunderstandings about the provisions of the will or the distribution of assets. If beneficiaries are unclear about their inheritance or the reason behind certain decisions, this can lead to dissatisfaction or disputes among the beneficiaries. Executors should strive to keep beneficiaries informed, manage their expectations, and address their concerns in a timely and respectful manner. We do this now in our business with a weekly email, even if there is no news. One of people's biggest fear is the fear of the unknown. Growing up, I used to watch a show called The Great Space Coaster. One of the segments had a puppet called Gary Gnu, and his tagline was, "No GNUs is good GNUs." So be like Gary, and even if there is no GNUs, report on it. By doing so, they can help to ensure a smoother probate process and maintain positive relationships with all parties involved. Number 5 is insufficient record keeping. Executors must maintain detailed and accurate records of all transactions, expenses, and distributions related to the estate to fulfill their fiduciary responsibility. Accurate and detailed record keeping is an essential duty of an executor during the probate process and its administration. Executors are tasked with managing a variety of transactions, expenses, and distributions related to the estate, and all of these activities have to be meticulously documented. Insufficient record keeping can lead to a multitude of problems, including legal disputes, tax complications, and potential breach of fiduciary responsibilities. Record-keeping responsibilities include tracking all of the assets within the estate, documenting any income generated by these assets, recording all expenses associated with administering the estate, and detailing the distribution of assets to the beneficiaries. These records serve as a transparent account of the executor's management of the estate and are crucial for resolving any kind of questions or disputes that may arise out of it. This is another situation where insufficient record keeping or lack of communication can undermine the executor's credibility and create suspicion among the beneficiaries. If beneficiaries can't see clear records of how the estate has been managed, they may question whether the executor has fulfilled their responsibilities appropriately. This lack of transparency will lead to disputes and, in severe cases, legal action against the executor. Furthermore, detailed records are necessary for fulfilling tax obligations. The executor must file income tax returns for the decedent and the estate, which will require accurate information about the estate's income and expenses. Inaccurate or incomplete records can lead to incorrect tax filings, resulting in penalties, interest charges from tax authorities, thus reducing the overall assets of the estate. Lastly, maintaining detailed records is part of the executor's fiduciary duty. That's the legal obligation to act in the best interest of the estate and its beneficiaries. Failing to keep accurate records can be seen as a breach of this duty, potentially leading to personal liability for the executor. In conclusion, insufficient record keeping is obviously a no-no and can lead to serious complications during the probate process. So what should you do? You should work to keep accurate and detailed records of every transaction, any expenses, any distributions, or any kind of costs that are related to the estate. Do this in conjunction with a CPA by using their bookkeeping software, or you can even use your own Excel spreadsheet or a software that I'm going to show you in the next video called Estate Exec. This software allows for complete transparency for everybody involved in the estate. By keeping great records, the executor can ensure full transparency. They'll fulfill tax obligations, uphold their fiduciary duties, and facilitate a smoother and more efficient probate process. Number 6 on this list is mismanagement of estate assets. Mishandling or neglecting the management of estate assets, such as failing to properly maintain and protect property, can lead to financial loss or legal complications. The effective management of estate assets is a crucial responsibility for an executor during the probate process. This not only involves the accurate inventory and valuation of assets, but also their ongoing maintenance and protection until they can be sold or distributed to the beneficiaries. Mismanagement of estate assets, whether through mishandling or neglect, can lead to significant financial loss and potential legal complications. One common form of asset mismanagement is failing to properly maintain a property. Real estate properties, vehicles, and other tangible assets require regular upkeep to preserve their value. If an executor neglects these maintenance responsibilities, the assets may depreciate, reducing their overall value for the estate. For example, let's say the estate has a house that nobody lives near, and maybe even the executor doesn't live near the house. If that house is left vacant for a period of time and nobody's there to maintain it or ensure that, even worse, you don't have squatters in there, the value of that house as it deteriorates is going to diminish. As the value diminishes, that is a liability on the executor because they didn't fulfill their fiduciary duty to the estate. Failure to protect assets can also result in financial loss. This may involve inadequate insurance coverage, leaving assets vulnerable to their theft or damage, or poor investment decisions that devalue financial assets. An executor has a fiduciary responsibility to safeguard the estate's assets, and failure to do so can be seen as a breach of this duty. Mismanagement of assets can also lead to legal complications. Beneficiaries who believe that the executor has mishandled assets may bring legal action, potentially resulting in court costs, damages, and the removal of the executor. In addition, if the mismanagement results in unpaid debt or taxes, the executor may face penalties or personal liability. If assets need to be repaired, replaced, or sold at a lower value due to mismanagement or neglect, this can prolong the time that it takes to settle the estate and distribute assets to beneficiaries, thus further delaying the probate process and increasing anxiety. Executors should exercise diligence and care in managing all estate assets, ensuring that they are properly maintained and protected. By doing so, they can preserve the value of the estate, uphold their duties as a fiduciary, avoid legal complications, and ensure a smoother and more efficient probate process. The next professional to add to your team after a lawyer and CPA would be a realtor experienced in the probate process and possibly an estate sale or clean-out company. Number 7 on our list is improper distribution of assets. Executors must adhere to the decedent's will or the laws of intestacy set by the state when distributing assets, ensuring fairness and compliance with legal requirements. Asset distribution during the probate process is a key responsibility for an executor, and it has to be done in accordance with the decedent's will. In the absence of the will, the laws of intestacy as set forth by the state will determine how everything gets distributed. Ensuring fairness and legal compliance in asset distribution is crucial to avoid any kind of challenges or legal missteps. Improper distribution of assets can happen when executors fail to adhere strictly to the terms set in the will or the stipulations of the laws of the state. This failure can stem from a misunderstanding of the executor's role, a lack of knowledge about estate law, or even intentional misconduct. The ramifications of such errors can be severe, cause legal disputes, and delay the probate process, potentially leading to liability for the executor. Executors are legally obligated to act in the best interest of the estate and its beneficiaries. They must ensure that all debts, taxes, and claims against the estate are settled before distributing any kind of assets to the heirs. Failure to do so will result in improper distribution, leaving the estate unable to meet its financial obligations, and the executor personally liable for any kind of shortfall. Fairness in asset distribution is not just a moral obligation, but a legal one. Executors must distribute assets equally among the beneficiaries as the decedent's will or intestacy laws state. Any perceived favoritism or unfair treatment can lead to legal challenges from disgruntled beneficiaries, further complicating the probate process. As an executor, you need to be working with a probate attorney going through the process of distribution. Failure to properly distribute as according to the will or the laws set forward by the state can put you in a lot of hot water, and obviously you want to avoid that. Not just hot water with the law and the state, but obviously with any of the potential beneficiaries or heirs of the estate. All right, so we've covered the first 7 of 13 mistakes, and in the next video, we're going to cover the last 6 and review the software that I mentioned when we talked about record keeping. Thank you for watching, and remember, careful planning and execution can make the probate process less daunting and more efficient. For more information, please refer to the resources linked down below in the description. And if you found the information in this video helpful, please go ahead and like it, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel for more helpful information about the probate process. Until then, we'll see you in the next video.